Imagine all the people living for today.
Trains ground to a halt in the capital, giving Ukrainians a safe place to shelter as the rocket attack warning siren wailed. From above ground, the muffled thud of explosions.
Our anti-missile system works quite well, but due to the high quantity of cruise missiles shot by Russian Federation, launched by Russian Federation, we still face some difficulties.
Difficulties like the loss of power, heat, and water. Ukrainian officials say Russia again targeted energy infrastructure sites. This time, roughly 9 power stations were knocked offline, affecting about 50% of the energy grid. In Kharkiv, there was a total blackout, but locals got to work at what's called an invincibility center. We heard explosions, the power went out. People need to be fed. We are here cooking on a wood stove. Generators, air defense, and the will of the people. 3 things Ukraine's Deputy Interior Minister says will see them through these dark and bitterly cold days.
Attacking our energy infrastructure, making people suffer during the winter time, that's about genocide of our nation. But I must admit that our moral is extremely strong and we will never surrender.
With that fight comes death and destruction. In Kyiv, several lives were lost and more than a dozen people were injured. As night fell, crews were still digging through the rubble of what's left of a residential apartment building. 1 child was unaccounted for. His parents and a 64-year-old woman had been killed. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
After dawn on Friday, and yet another countrywide Russian missile attack. The target, as before, Ukraine's energy grid. Officials say 9 power facilities were damaged. The aim, to freeze people into submission. Air raid sirens in the capital Kyiv drove civilians underground, seeking shelter in the city's metro stations. Air defences are said to have intercepted most of the incoming missiles, but even then debris must fall somewhere, and it can fall anywhere. And what else to do on a freezing Friday underground but dance and sing?
Attacking our energy infrastructure, making people suffer during the winter time, that's about genocide of our nation. But I must admit that our moral is extremely strong and we will never surrender.
On Thursday, far away in Geneva, the UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights warned that ongoing attacks on energy infrastructure were exposing millions to extreme hardship.
Over 10 million consumers are facing cuts in electricity, and millions are cut off from a regular supply of water and heat. Additional strikes could lead to a further serious deterioration in the humanitarian situation and spark more displacement.
This was the scene at a residential building in the central city of Kryvyi Rih, struck by a missile shot down or gone astray. And this, a metro station, another impromptu shelter in the northern city of Kharkiv. We heard the explosions. There were a lot of them, she says. I was in a bus and the electricity was still on, but then the power went out and we came down here. Now we're waiting for the air raid alarm to end. After the 9th such wave of attacks since October, with public food and heating stations now in widespread use, Ukrainians were left facing emergency blackouts and plummeting temperatures as this punishing wartime winter grinds on. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera.
When we went to surrender, as soon as we got to the Russian soldiers, they took basic identification, names and stuff. One of them looked at my passport, saw I was British, and he was a bit puzzled. then gave it back. And then they put us on a bus, and then they drove us to Sortierung, which was like just down the road from us. And then we got like to a warehouse, and basically we got marched off, and then everything changed. Like everything went super aggressive. They lined us up in this like empty warehouse and just put us into stress positions against the wall. And then one by one they would like take someone to like just identify them and like take their details. And then it came to me. I gave him like my military documents, and my military veterans card, and then I gave him my passport. As soon as he like flicked through the passport and like realised it was a British passport, like he asked me like, where am I from? And then that's when I said Great Britain in Russian. As soon as I said Great Britain, like I instantly like got a punch to the face and then beat a few times. As I was like sat on the bench, like he stopped beating me and went into this like, it's like, I don't know the word to describe it. It wasn't cringy, but it was just like weird. He went into this like little, like he was like smoking a cigarette and telling all this like like stuff about me, like what he's going to do and whatnot. And then he asked like, "Did you see what I did to you?" And I was like, "No." And then he like pointed to my shoulder, and then I like looked, and then he said like I can't remember what he said exactly, but he said he'd stabbed me basically. And then I saw the stab wound, but I didn't feel it at the time. And then he like basically told me like do you want a beautiful death or do you want a quick death? And at that point, like I said quick death, because once I saw I got stabbed, like I mean on the car journey there, I prepared myself. I was like preparing myself mentally, like I'm about to be beaten and interrogated. But as soon as I saw that I was stabbed, like that's when I like kind of like went into like just trying to survive, because at that point like I didn't expect to get stabbed. I mean, I expected to get beaten and whatnot and tortured and all that stuff, but I didn't expect them to actually like stab me.
Das staatliche Energieunternehmen der Ukraine hat den Notstand ausgerufen, da mehr als die Hälfte der Verbraucher von Ausfällen betroffen ist. Am Freitagmorgen hat die ukrainische Luftverteidigung laut dem Oberbefehlshaber der ukrainischen Streitkräfte 60 von 78 russischen Raketen abgeschossen. Die Angriffe galten Odessa, Charkiw, Kryvyi Rih, Saporischschja und Kiew. Von 40 russischen Raketen, die auf die Hauptstadt gefeuert wurden, wurden 37 von der ukrainischen Luftverteidigung abgeschossen. Das ISW gibt an, dass sich Putins Ziele in der Ukraine nicht verändert haben und dass er 2 militärische Operationen simultan durchführt, um sein großes Ziel zu erreichen: die Kontrolle über die Ukraine zurückzuerlangen und große territoriale Zugewinne zu sichern. Die erste Operation ist Russlands laufende Offensive in der Donetsk-Region, vor allem in der Gegend um Bachmut und Awdijiwka. Laut dem ISW hat Putin den russischen Truppen den Befehl gegeben, die Donetsk-Region komplett zu erobern. Die momentane Offensive ist Teil der Umsetzung dieses Befehls. Die massiven Raketenangriffe auf die ukrainische Infrastruktur sind Putins zweite Militäroperation, mit der er die Ukraine entweder zur Kapitulation oder zu Verhandlungen zu seinen Bedingungen zwingen will. Bisher genügen diese 2 Militäroperationen nicht, um die Ukraine zu Verhandlungen oder zu präventiven Zugeständnissen zu bewegen. Das ISW geht deshalb davon aus, dass Putin eine dritte Militäroperation plant. Dabei soll es sich um eine erneute Offensive gegen die Ukraine im Winter 2023 handeln. Mehrere ukrainische offizielle und unabhängige belarussische Quellen berichten seit Oktober 2022 von einer wachsenden russischen Militärpräsenz in Belarus. Ukrainische Offizielle warnen mit wachsendem Nachdruck, dass russische Streitkräfte zwischen Januar und März 2023 versuchen könnten, Kiew anzugreifen. Dennoch hält das ISW es für äußerst unwahrscheinlich, dass es den russischen Streitkräften gelingen würde, Kiew einzunehmen, selbst wenn sie von Belarus aus angreifen sollten.
Imagina la gente viviendo en paz. me llamas soñador.